my wife got a coffee cup, said like Tired People Club or something like that.
Sure.
I thought it said Fired People Club. I was like, oh, no way. Like, that's the coolest cup ever.
You're like, I relate to this.
Especially in team sports.
You're getting fired.
You're getting fired.
Welcome to the Coach 'em Up podcast. I'm Tim Riley. I'm not joined with Zach Zillner today. It is me and who I'm yet to reveal because I have a few announcements, our guest for the day. A couple things. By the time you hear this, we will have completed the inaugural Coach 'em Up conference. And just a final thank you to everyone who showed up, made the trip, came out to the conference. It selling out as quickly as it did for our first conference, like, really means a lot. It's a truly special thing. So thank you. And then this last bit, and then we're going to get into it. There are two types of people in this world. I don't know if you're aware of that. There are subscribers and there are non-subscribers. Don't be a non-subscriber. Go ahead and subscribe. It's free. It helps us out. And you know what? Like, I don't usually condone this kind of behavior, but like, if your girlfriend's phone is sitting around and it's unattended, don't rifle through the text messages. You should trust her. But what you could do is just, like, I don't know, go to the Coach 'em Up page and subscribe her. And then maybe one day she'll pull up a clip and be like, wow, I did not know isometrics could be so impactful. With that being said, I'm super excited to announce our guest, Scott Salwasser. Scott, what's up, dude?
Hey, Tim. How you doing, man? I'm fired up to be here.
Super grateful to have you. And, the nature of the podcast game, I've come to learn is, like, it's not always you actually get to hang out with the guests a little bit prior to the show. And you got here early. I was here early. And so we got to kind of hang out and just kind of talk about our lives and just shoot the shit a little bit.
Right.
And I'm really glad we got the opportunity to do that. You also, girl dad. I'm a girl dad. Well, you're a girl and boy dad. You got it all, dude.
I got it all. Yeah. Multiple times over. Yeah.
So, Scott, in preparation for this podcast, I properly stalked your Instagram. I've been following you for some time now. We've been able to hang out a little bit, so I know who you are.
Okay. For
the people who've been living under a rock and don't know who you are, can you tell people a little bit about who Coach Scott Sal is, what your background is, and how you got here today?
All right. So currently I'm at Exos. In Plano, Texas. I work with the Pro Elite and NFL Combine preparation program. Prior to that, most of my history has been at the collegiate and NFL level. Started out, how did I get there? Started out, like everybody, loving sports, being obsessed with sports, playing everything growing up. Got to high school, played baseball, football, and rugby.
Hell yeah.
Which, like, rugby sevens is my favorite sport on earth, but that's a whole nother conversation. So played all those sports in high school, went to college, played football in college. And actually in college, my bachelor's degree is actually in English and communications.
Really?
So yeah, I wanted to be a sports writer. Just growing up, and in those days there was a paper in the driveway every day, and I would get up early and read that, and that's what I wanted to be. But preparing for college football, I fell in love with strength and conditioning. So I had the good fortune and the blessing, as we talked about beforehand. So my high school strength coach, when I was in high school, he was an intern for the Oakland Raiders. And now fast forward 5 years later, he was full-time with the Oakland Raiders. And I reached out to him and I was like, look, played college football, loved the preparation aspect, became obsessed with the preparation aspect, totally changed who I was as an athlete. And I think I want to do this. Do you have any advice for me? What do you think I need to do to get my foot in the door? He's like, well, and we had a really good relationship. He's like, why don't you come down here and intern? God. I'm like, you serious? Like, I don't know anything, man. Like, I just,
How old are you at this time?
I'm like 22 or 23.
Dude,
yeah.
oh my God.
Yeah, man. So I go down there. Now this is the team that I grew up cheering for. So it was like we talked about before, you know, it was cool because of all of the fan reasons, but it was also cool because the very first thing I did was walk into a building full of superstars.
Yeah.
So like after that, like, you know, there was no awestruck or, oh my God, that's so-and-so. Like, I mean, to me, that was just normal. Like, oh, I'm dating myself, but there's Jerry Rice. Oh, there's Rod Woodson, you know? So that was my first experience. Incredible. Didn't know a ton, but learned a ton. And I went from there, okay, this is what I want to do. Went to grad school, got a master's in kinesiology, competed in Olympic weightlifting while I was a grad student, up to a fairly high level, really enjoyed that, kept the competitive juices flowing, was a GA, so would coach during the day, at night, go to class, try to stay awake, and train for Olympic lifting. So graduated, became full-time there. That was at Sacramento State, and then embarked on my journey, you know, from Sacramento State, Louisiana Lafayette University, was my first D1 job, from Louisiana Lafayette, back actually to the Bay Area, where that was my only other private sector experience at a place called Sparta, which now I don't think they even have a brick and mortar training facility, but that was my first time working with a force plate, and this was 2011. So talk about
Basically you were living in the future.
Grassroots. I mean, no one even knew what this stuff was.
Right.
And so the science geek in me was like, this is awesome. I mean, like, and talk about a tremendous experience. A lot of why I feel like I have such a good grasp of force plate technology now was that experience. I mean, it was literally, we would sit in a boardroom with a whiteboard looking at these force traces and try to make sense of them.
Wow.
And dude, just what a tremendous foundational experience. But got to the point there where I realized I hadn't run out of the tunnel often enough, missed it. So went from there to Cal, spent about 4 years at Cal. From there, went to Texas Tech as the director of speed and power, spent about 3 years there, Texas Tech. And
what a badass title, by the way.
Right? And
Director of Speed and Power.
Well,
Let's fucking go, dude.
So how that happened was I was like, I wanted to stay at Cal. I was from the Bay Area.
Right.
And kind of how that happened was I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to ask for outrageous things that they'll never like meet, you know?
And they said yes.
And I want to make this. I want to have this title. I want, you know, and then the head coach, Coach Kingsbury, calls me up. Now talk about, just as an aside, talk about an amazing dude. Like I always say that in this profession, there's more good coaches than there are good people. Sadly, he's both. What a tremendous dude. And a huge WWE fan, as am I. So we bonded over that.
Hell yes.
But so done. Well, all right, I guess I'm going to Lubbock, Texas. So spent 3 years there. And this is where I'll kind of kick it into fast forward, so we don't spend all day talking about my background. But Texas State, South Carolina, Washington State. At Washington State, I kind of got the epiphany that, like, you know, I'm replaceable at all of these schools, clearly, as we see. As we see time and time again, right? Like, you don't win enough games, or a new coach comes in, you're not my guy.
Yeah.
You know, no offense to you, but you got to find a different address. But where I'm not replaceable is as dad. You know, and that sounds kind of cheesy, but like that was, I'm like, these kids are stuck with me, for better or worse. There's gonna be someone sitting in my seat at my desk in a week if I walk out of here. You know, so moved to Dallas, just sight unseen. To be around at the time my daughters who were living down here, and actually ended up initially working at a high school. I was coming to Dallas.
Period. You were coming here to be with your girls, no matter what.
But luckily, and I knew also, like, I knew I needed a job that I could stay at for a while if need be, so that I could say, hey, I'm here and, I'm going to be here.
Yeah.
So I had worked for Sonny Dykes at Cal, and he was at SMU at the time. So I knew some guys on his staff, and I said, hey, I don't know anything about any high schools, anything like that down there. If you guys know someone, please reach out. And so I ended up at Bishop Lynch High School for 3.5 years. But got to the point there, where I loved every second of it, but that itch to do more, like work with just the high level athletes that I was used to, do cooler stuff, to oversimplify, right? Like really push myself, was still in me, just like years before. Like I said, I hadn't run out of enough tunnels yet, so I needed that. And Brent Calloway, who at the time was our vice president of performance, I had known him for probably a decade, because all the schools I had been at, we would send guys to Exos for combine and all of that. And so we had gotten to know each other. And I like to think that I would send him guys that were prepared, because you see guys all over the map in that respect. But I like to think that the guys I sent him were prepared.
Sure.
And, so he gave me this opportunity in Plano, and extremely grateful. And so this was my first go-around combine, NFL offseason, which is still going. Obviously, they'll come back here in a few weeks. And so that's where I'm at right now. So that's how I got from point A to point B. I know that's long-winded, but
well, I don't know about long-winded. I think you navigated that about as concisely as possible. You've done a lot.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
You've done a lot of cool shit, man. And just as you were speaking, something that comes up, and it has been kind of like a reoccurring thread of conversation on the podcast, is, pros and cons of working in the private sector relative to, working in the collegiate or like pro team settings. And with your experience, I would just be interested to know, like, what are some of the things that separate the two, and what are some of the pros and cons that come with both?
Yeah, I think for me, I think it's what in the profession or your job description do you value the most? Because either way, you're going to get to work with high-level athletes potentially, right? Either way, you're going to build relationships and be around sport. But do you need a game day, so to speak, experience to feel fulfilled? Or are the improvements and the goals that you're helping these athletes meet on a daily basis and over time, is that what moves the needle for you? Mm-hmm. So, I've been on both sides of the coin there, but to me, that's really what it comes down to. Like, do you need to train and then at the end of the day go to football practice and on Saturday run out of the tunnel? Or, can the combine be your game day? Or can, whatever camp or scouting deal, can that be your game day, And it's just everybody lies on different ends of the spectrum there. But to me, that's really what it comes down to.
You know what else I find too? It feels like there's always this sense of people who have spent a lot of time on like one side of this fence that's been drawn somehow. I don't know where, you know what I mean? But they're different, But it feels like everyone's kind of peering over, you know what I mean? And looking at some of the things that the other side gets to do and gets to have inherent. Right. And they say, God, that would be so sweet. And, oftentimes I'll speak with particularly collegiate strength coaches, performance coaches, and they peer over into the private sector and they're like, God, that flexibility looks awful nice. You know what I mean? And then, but with on the other side of that coin, what I'll hear, and I've even felt this too, where at times like I see someone run out the tunnel, I'm like, God, that looks fun. Freaking sweet, dude.
Well, I think the cool thing about the private sector is you're justified by the results you produce.
Yes.
In terms of the results you produce. A lot of times, for better or worse, on the team setting, you're evaluated on the team's results.
Yeah.
Which, as we know, we could spend the entire podcast talking about factors that affect that outside of just the performance training, right? So to me, that's the nice thing about this. Now, The other thing is, in that realm, right, you can hide behind team success even if you have dropped the ball a few times, right? Like you got talented enough players, maybe your program in the offseason wasn't what you had hoped it would be. Those guys bail you out. That doesn't exist in the private sector.
No.
Like you're what you did is is there for the world to see, and you're under a microscope in that regard. So as you mentioned, there's pros and cons of both.
Yeah, no doubt. You said something earlier. I can tell you right now, I'm never going to forget this. You said that there are more good coaches than good people. And I mean, dude, honestly, I don't know if I'm going to start. Eventually, I'm going to get like a wall in here of quotes that coaches have said. I mean, that is all time. And it's an unfortunate truth, but it's the case. And it's like that in any profession. Right. There are talented people. There are good people. It's hard to find good and talented people. It's just, it's a statistics thing.
Right.
With all the stops you've had, the success you've had, working at the highest levels in both private and collegiate and pro settings. We talked about this off air, but so often Zach and I get questions asked around, how do I do it? How do I get there? I want to be where you are. What do I need to do? And your quote, what you said, made me think and reminded me that there's so much more to operating at a high level and working with high level athletes and doing it for a long time.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Because people can get there. That doesn't mean they can stay there.
Right.
So what are the essentials, Scott? Like what are the things that you need as a person to be able to get you to that place and then keep you at that place?
Right. So obviously, first, job-wise competency. You have to be good at what you're doing. Right. Like there's smoke and mirrors, and there's people that can be successful through magic tricks, but that's hard to do. Right. It's much easier to just be good at what you do and know your stuff and be a good coach. So that's obviously goes without saying.
Can I jump in here real quick?
Yeah.
Too? The funny thing about that is I have seen time and again people who get to a place a lot of people desire to be by completely bullshitting their way to get there.
It happens.
And I think to myself, my God, because I see it and I'm like, that takes a lot of effort, dude.
Right.
Wouldn't you'd been better off just putting the effort into being good at your job?
100%. But what we can learn from those people is that there's an entire other side of what we do besides programming and knowing the movements and coaching. So what is it? They're doing something right.
Yep.
Right. And that's the people side.
Yes.
Right? So building relationships, building trust, right? All of those things. And that's things that you do to kind of blend the last two questions. That's things that you do on both team and private side. However, the biggest thing that I'm learning now is the time crunch. Everything happens so much faster in the private sector. And now obviously college is changing a little bit with NIL, guys are transferring, but you get these guys and for the most part, you got some time to get to know them, to, build that relationship. It's like, as you know, private sector, man, like you got to be building it. Like the second you shake their hand, it started, because you just don't have the time that you have in the team setting, both for performance, right? Yeah. To elicit results, you got to get results, real results, quick.
Yep.
But build that buy-in, build that trust, build that relationship quick. And that's where, right now that the adaptation that I'm going through is like, I got to speed up my process in terms of getting that building those relationships, because it's not college where you got, this guy's going to be around.
Right. You got some time to cook.
We'll get to know each other. So that's a big thing. So yeah, you got to be good at your job. You got to have those people skills. And that's, you asked me off air earlier, like what would I have done differently? I would have paid attention to that part sooner, both in terms of with the athletes, but also networking with other coaches. As a competitor, like no, I'm going to be better than you, right? Like, why would I want to befriend you? Like, I want to be
I'm
better
trying to
than
take
you.
your job, motherfucker.
I want to be better than you, right? Like,
Right,
so
yes.
this super secret world's greatest program that I have, no one's going to see it but me.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you're young, you stare at the computer screen haggling over like the smallest things,
Yeah.
you know, and in reality, like, do those things matter? Yeah. But like, broaden your horizon, man. Look around. Talk to other coaches, like network. Because if you want to be that guy, like get to those, it doesn't happen without people. Like literally, like I know so many good coaches that probably aren't to the level that they should be because of that, you know, and that's something that's huge. And then lastly, resilience, because no matter how good you are, this is actually kind of funny. So like my wife got a coffee cup that said like, I forget exactly what it said, but it said something about tired people, tired people club or something like that.
Sure.
I thought it said fired people club. I was like, oh, no way. Like, that's the coolest cup ever.
You're like, I relate to this.
I'm like, you got this for me? Because, you know, especially in team sports,
yeah.
it's gonna happen. Right?
You're getting fired.
You're getting fired. There's no amount of success that you could have that prevents that other than luck.
Yeah.
Right? You know, you can make it less likely by being really good, but it happens, you know, so resiliency, you gotta really like be on to the next thing. And that's, here's a outstanding quote. And when I was at Cal, they have a very successful rugby program, Jack Clark and Tom Billups, and it's the best culture I've ever seen around a team.
You know who else said that? Chad Wesley Smith.
Yeah.
He said the same thing about that program.
It's phenomenal. So I would like talk to those coaches and study that, because I'm like, dude, this is culture. And one of their mottos is mental toughness is the ability to focus on the next most important thing. Wow. So you get fired. All right, let's get back in the saddle. What's my next job? What can I learn from this experience? What do I need to do better at the next go around? And so resilience, because it's not going to be linear. You know, if it's linear, it's about to not be. So you gotta be good at what a competent coach, a good people person. You got to be resilient, and you got to be in it for the right reasons. I think that honestly goes a long way. Like, I always like to say, like, if you need to see your name in lights, go to Hollywood. Yeah, because this ain't it. You know, this is about putting other people's names in lights. You know, and I think all of us at some point get a little excited about ourselves and you know, I did that or we did that, you know. But at the end of the day, this is not the place you come to be famous. Yep. So being able to understand that and be in it for the right reasons and be excited about improvement that you helped elicit for someone else, and maybe their name gets in lights, you know. So that's kind of my answer to that.
By the way, you just dropped another quote that that might be the best definition of mental toughness that I've ever heard. Yeah, because Cal Rugby. Yeah. It gets that mental toughness as a theme is something often tasked to the strength coach. Right. Might we add. That is kind of like this nebulous, kind of hard to nail down, hard to really pinpoint and say like what it is or it isn't, but you know it when you see it. Right. And you know it when someone's got it. Yeah. It's just, it's obvious and it's apparent. Yeah. Yeah. To me, it's just to be able to withstand adversity and move on, you know, and not have it, you know, chip away at you. Because I think mental toughness training, it's just torture, right? Basically. 100%. And to me, I always thought like, so being tough is just enduring getting my butt kicked? Like enduring getting your ass kicked. So like, I get that there's a piece of that, right? Yes. There's a piece of that. But in order to win or succeed, like I've got to have, it's got to go beyond that. Yeah. Because then all right,
I get my butt kicked.
And that's just what I do. I get my ass kicked.
Next week I come back and I get my butt kicked, So like, it's got to go beyond that. So like, what is it that moves the needle? And I think it's that. It's like, okay, like get back up. Yeah. But adapt, re-engage and move on and figure out what you can do better and do that,
Zach, what's the best training app on the planet?
It has to be Train Heroic. Gone are the days of sending the old crusty PDF. Now we have a sleek new app.
It's easy to use. There's videos with descriptions. You get to track and log your weight, your reps. There's a community chat function. You can submit videos. You can get feedback.
How about the leaderboard, Tim?
I started using Train Heroic first as an athlete and someone who wanted to learn. Now I use it as a coach. Athletes and other coaches can go and be a part of my training community and get results.
Whether you're an athlete, coach, or just like to train, use the link in our description to find out how you can train on the best app in the world.
And join us on Train Heroic today. The Coach 'em Up podcast has partnered with Eleiko.
Let's go!
Not only is Eleiko found in 85% of Power 5 schools, but they also offer at-home solutions from racks, flooring, rigs, barbells, bumper plates, your favorite accessories like straps and weightlifting belts, you name it, Eleiko's got you covered. Go to eleiko.com/coachemup and get access to the same equipment that they're using in the best facilities with the best athletes on the planet.
And now, back to the show.
You mentioned, kind of this new learning curve that you're getting the opportunity to experience now with guys showing up, building that relationship faster, getting results faster.
Right.
And, me being lifelong private sector, I resonate with that so much where it's like, okay, a lot of the stuff that maybe I used to find or place a lot of importance on, that stuff just because of the context and the constraints of time, the nonsense and the fluff gets ripped away real quick.
Right.
And it's been difficult because like there were things that like I had a hard time parting with that like I just liked or philosophically I sort of leaned into, but as a byproduct of just the ultimate purpose being I'm here to do a job. I'm here to provide a service. I need to get this person from point A. What's the straightest line to that?
Right.
And what makes the most sense?
Yep.
So all that to say, for you, philosophically, from a training perspective, over the course of your career, how have things shifted? And then more recently, being placed in this new position, what's changed?
So my biggest, the first thing that jumped in my mind when you were talking about all that, especially in the private sector, like right now, like I'm obsessed with our intake process because you say, how's the quickest from point A to point B? You got to know what direction to point that line, right? Like in the old days, you had your 12-week program, and then you had your year-long program, and then a couple times a year we'll check in and see if you've gotten better. I mean, now like you've got to have an airtight intake process that right away safely and reliably gives you the information that you as a coach need to know about that athlete. And there's your North Star. Because to me, like you don't have time to stray off path, right? I need to know where we're going. But in order to do that, it can't be just me guessing or me like being like, oh, I think you should do this. Why?
Right.
Give me the numbers, right? Give me the numbers. What do I think is important for me to know about you to guide my programming, to guide my coaching so that from day one, the path we're on is the right path. We don't have time to explore. You know, it's got to be, there it is. This is why. This is the path. And we're full steam ahead. So intake.
What are the obvious question for me? Because now I selfishly just want to know, what are some of those things like, what are the KPIs, the bits of information about the athlete as an individual that you're really looking into to help you sift through what matters and what doesn't?
Right. So at the most foundational level, a PT eval, mobility and stability in certain joints, any imbalances there at the most ground level, injury history, all of those things, all of those nature. Like if you can't move properly on a table or in the training room, what are the odds that you're going to move properly at 22 miles an hour, right? Like something's going to give. So that's the most foundational level. From there, jumping, sprinting, and lifting, right? Now that's oversimplifying it, so let me dive deeper. Jumping on a force plate, looking for asymmetries, looking for eccentric qualities, concentric qualities, reactive strength qualities. That's going to point me in the direction and honestly tell me a lot more than just that, right? Like if I know that I can look at your force plate testing and all of your eccentric qualities suck, I'm going to guess that probably your brakes aren't very good, right? Like you have a hard time stopping. Me as a older athlete, my eccentric numbers start to decline, and if you watch me move, right, I have a harder time stopping than I used to. I can still go. You know, concentrically, obviously, you're going. Like I always tell people, eccentric going that way, concentric going that way, right? So we look at that, and then obviously one side relative to the other. Nordboard data, post chain, both asymmetry and strength, isometrically and eccentrically. I'm in love with the 1080. They don't.
Me and you both.
They don't give me like this is. They don't. I'm not endorsing them.
They're not paying you.
They're not paying me, or even giving me anything free.
Listen,
but
those things. They will burn a hole in your pocket, my God, but they are incredible pieces.
And for the data that you get from that as well, right? Force velocity profiling, it's the same thing, right? Like you can do an athletic movement, like a jump on a force plate, and now what are we all trying to do? Get faster, right? So why would I? Like you can, and we have, and everyone has extrapolated from jumping to sprinting. But now if you have the ability to get that data on a sprint, why would you not, right? So now we can get that data on a sprint from the 1080. So those are obviously objective numbers. There's also the subjective piece of technical ability where you would film them, watch them. That's obviously significantly a piece, and that'll never go away. That's called coaching. But the numbers help inform that. They even help inform your cueing and your coaching. So again, just from a foundational level, PT eval, I want to see you jump and get numbers on that. I want to see you sprint and get numbers on that. And then lifting wise, we at Exos have a ton of Kaiser equipment, which gives a lot of metrics as well. And but really for me is a safe way to get guys on day one under some load and get some data there as well, you know. So that would be the lifting strength power piece where I can see how you function under certain loads, at certain speeds. And this whole time I'm looking for the hole in your game, right? What do you need? Because as you hit it on the head, we want to pare away all the fluff, right? I want to give you everything you need and nothing that you don't, because I don't have time to waste giving you stuff that you don't need, right? Like, and that's not to say, you know, I've had people ask me this question too, like, so you just chase weaknesses? I'm like, no, obviously, like if you're good at something, you have to retain that, right? If all I do is, you know, feed you vegetables and never a piece of steak, you know, like that's not it either, right? I want to retain what you're good at. So where do you draw the line? So we've got thresholds, like a stoplight, green, yellow, and red. So if you're red, now you're a threat to yourself. Now, that's where I'm going to say like, okay, hold on. We really got to dive in here. Green, obviously, you're good to go. And then yellow, okay, we're going to keep an eye on it. I might adjust a few things, but for the most part, you know, we're going to roll. But yeah, I mean, you need to reinforce your strengths as well. You can't just chase a weakness and now your strength is your weakness and now it's whack-a-mole, right?
Exactly.
I got better at this. Well, yeah, but I got worse at this. Like the idea is to seesaw everything upward.
You've seen a lot of things come and go throughout your career, and I'm sure you've had philosophy shifts and things have ebbed and flowed and ththings you used to think important weren't important. And then and then you're like, oh, maybe this is important. And then you're like, maybe that's not so important anymore. You know what I mean?
Right.
But in a field that's always changing and always advancing and there's always new ideas coming in, how do you balance, maintaining the things that you feel like fundamental while also adding in those new ideas, principles, concepts, to help challenge yourself and push things forward?
Right. I think it depends on the situation. And by situation, obviously, as we mentioned, the numbers, what the athlete needs, also what they're getting ready to do, i.e. sport, position, and then also the biggest thing, which we've mentioned numerous times, the amount of time you have.
Yeah, man.
So I'm a former Olympic lifter, right? I love Olympic lifts. And when I have time with an athlete, we will Olympic lift. But in a combine scenario or where the time is so finite, if you haven't Olympic lifted before, the odds that I'm going to teach you it and make you good enough at it to establish enough output to elicit adaptations in 6 weeks, not real high, right? So I've got to choose something else. So it's knowing when to hold them and know when to fold them, right? I guess, so to speak. So I would say that, and as far as integrating new stuff, one thing that that we haven't mentioned yet that I always say, like, people have been getting better without force plates for years. People obviously been getting better without 1080s for years, but the thing that I would have a hard time doing without now would be VBT, because, dude, like, you don't really need to know somebody's 1 rep max anymore.
Yeah.
All you need to know is what velocity correlates with what quality you're trying to train. And you coach them up, and if they look good, stay in that zone, and we're gonna hit that, and so, and it applies to everything. You can any exercise, right? Like, and so that's the piece, the new piece. And I've used tendos for a long time. Now our racks at Exos have it kind of integrated into the rack, but that's the piece. And I'm not saying I couldn't live without it, but that's the piece where I'm like, wow, like this revolutionizes the game, because now I don't have to 1 rep max you so that I can know exactly what 85% is.
Yes.
Otherwise, this program's not going to work. Now I just know that, okay, I want to train this strength quality. If you're moving safely with good technique, we're going to put as much weight on there as
Let
we
it
can
rip, baby.
in that zone. Yeah. and you're good to go. And then next time, we'll try and beat that.
Yes.
Either we're going to move that same weight faster, or we're going to add weight in that zone, and you got better. And as I said, you seesaw your way up. So that's the piece of technology that really, really I love. I think programming-wise, like, it makes things so much better, so much easier, and that leaves nothing to guessing, right? Because these percentages on any given day, they're not that.
That's
right?
that's my trouble that I've had with percentages in the past, where it's like everyone reacts to training differently. And look, dude, even in a controlled environment, as controlled as it can be, where, like, guys are getting 3 meals a day. They have 8 weeks. The program's laid out. They have interns out the ass everywhere there to help them, PTs and stuff.
Yeah.
You still don't know how guys are going to respond.
Maybe they broke up with their girlfriend last night.
Exactly,
maybe,
dude.
They're a little bit under the weather, but that's the good thing. The speed will tell you, right? Assuming that they're trying,
right?
You'll know, right? Like, okay, that's the most weight that you can move at that speed today. That's as good as it gets today.
Yep.
Maybe next time the frying pan is hot. All right, you're above the zone, dude.
Yep.
Let's go. And you give them targets to hit, and you'd be surprised, like, they'll hit them, right? Versus just put 85% on the bar.
Right.
All right, that looks good.
Yeah.
No, man, like, I would love, we're going to start out at body weight plus 50. This is the zone I want you in. I would love if you would hit body weight plus 125 at that speed.
Let's see if you got it.
I bet,
Yeah.
like, Let's see if you got it, man. And competition kicks in.
Yeah.
We're all competitors. We all want to do better and beat the guy next to us, even if it's your buddy, especially if it's your buddy.
100%.
And let's ride. So
one of the things I love most about working with athletes in the weight room, particularly in the private setting, is the trash talking, dude. The competition, yes, I love it so much. It's just so much fun getting guys in there having to compete with one another, trying to outlift one another, move the weight faster, you know, a little bit faster on that fly 10 than you, or I beat my time last week, you didn't. What have you been doing? You know, all the things. Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
And getting an opportunity to work with high level athletes, like you can kind of see where it's like, oh, I challenged him to do that, and like he was able to do it. And then you have this experience too, and me as well, getting an opportunity to be a strength coach at the high school level. Mm-hmm. And literally in the same day, I would go from like, I'm coaching this high school basketball team, and where it's like, you will be only goblet squatting today, sir. Yeah. And then making the transition, driving an hour, and then I'm doing pro day prep.
Yeah.
I would love to hear your take on what separates the average athlete to the guys that are going to end up playing on a Sunday.
Well, other than who their parents were. Yeah. Right? Like but you can't control that, right?
No.
The biggest thing that I think, other than, they jump higher or run faster, the biggest thing that I see with elite athletes relative to lesser athletes is they can make changes rapidly. Like if you hit the nail on the head with your cueing, they can change it.
Yeah.
And that's not always the case. Like your high school kid might be trying like hell.
Yep.
And he understands what you're saying, but it's going to take the session, the week, maybe longer, and then eventually you'll see that change. Like some of these dudes can change on a dime.
Yep.
You know, like, I'll do this or do that. Okay. And there it is.
Oh, you mean like this?
Yeah.
It's like, actually, yes, that's exactly what I meant.
Exactly what I mean. To have the body awareness and control to be able to do that, like that to me is the impressive thing. Because they run fast and they're big and strong and jump high and stuff, but like it's that because that's what we're after, right? We're trying to make changes.
Yep.
And these dudes can change on a dime, and that's the thing that always blows me away is like you tell them one thing and it's the right thing, and they improve.
Yeah.
You know, or how quickly if you got your program right, like you took in the data and you said, this is the direction we're going, how quickly they get better. You know, in 3 weeks or 6 weeks to 8 weeks in a combine scenario, they can get
shocking
so much better, you know? And I obviously know what I'm doing, but I can only make my own 40 so much faster in 8 weeks.
Yeah, man.
Doing all the right stuff and knowing exactly what to do. Mm-hmm. But some of these guys, the improvements they can make in a short time, if you get it right, that's the piece. You know, both within a session, like technical improvements, and then over the course of weeks, like output improvements, like, you were red. To talk about like what we talked about earlier, the stoplight. You were red in this quality, and 3 weeks later you're green.
Yeah, what the hell?
Like, dude, you we programmed to that, and we set that as a goal to fix it. And dude, your body said, "All right, let's fix it."
Yep.
Boop. And now I'm this. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, because until you see it, it's kind of hard to like really wrap your head around, you know, just like, it's like, this person wanted to get better at this quality, or they needed to change their body composition this much. And like they did it and then some, dude.
Yeah.
A lot of people aspire to, particularly trainers, performance coaches, aspire to be in your position right now. Like that's it. That's the pinnacle, baby. You know that, right? It's the truth. It is. I get enough DMs to know that that's the case. No fluff. What is running a combine prep really like? I mean, I think people have like these looks around like, what it's like it's almost always glamorous. It's held on this pedestal. And for anyone who's been in it, it's a grind. So I want to know your opinion, your take firsthand. What's been your experience? The pros, the cons, the good, the bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your experience?
So I think first off, it starts with honesty, honest expectations, honest with your data. And Brent Callaway, as I mentioned, he's now with the Miami Dolphins, but he was kind of my mentor in this process. And that was the biggest thing, other than being an outstanding coach, that always struck me about him was he didn't embellish the numbers to make people feel good. He was honest. And so if you got better, you knew you got better. And then when you got to the combine, you knew what you were going to run. And then when you ran better than that,
you were thrilled.
You were happy with that. And because you would run better than that, we're going to taper you. We're going to make sure you're feeling good. Like there's a method to the madness, and you'll run better than that. And you know that you did the best you could. You know, I think a lot of where you could go wrong is wanting the athletes to every day walk out of there thinking that they got better.
Yeah.
And then you create this specter of numbers or performances that they're not really going to be able to live up to. And that's where it gets tough, man. So it's having both the guts to be honest, but then also the psychology to be able to explain that to an athlete and be like, look, like there are going to be days where you did not get a lick faster. They just are, you know, like they just are. But do you want to be faster today or do you want to be faster when it matters? You'll be faster when it matters. I promise that. Mm-hmm. This is a process. It's a path. There's peaks and valleys. But at the end of the day, we know where we're going and we're going to get there, you know? So that's the biggest thing is honesty. And like I said, having a process that you believe in, that you refine, having the data that you need so that you can plot a path for success that each athlete needs. So those would be my biggest things. But the honesty piece is something that people don't really think about. They're like, what exercises do you do or what drills do you do? I think everyone knows what exercises and drills to do. Now, it might not be implemented as well some places or others, or it might not be coached as well, or people might not have the coaching eye. But what everyone can do is be honest about the process.
So there's so much on the line for these guys, right? Particularly in the combine prep, pro day prep process, where it's like their whole life and their whole careers have culminated to this, and then they string together 3 shitty speed days, you know?
Yeah, that's tough. That's where you got to be a psychologist and a coach, you know?
And the conversations I have where it's like, look, like in order for you to have those good days, you're going to have to walk through some of the bad days.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
There's nothing about life that's ever been linear. And oftentimes I can say, tell me about your college career.
Yeah.
I mean, you get a few guys, it's like everything they touch turns to gold, but very rarely do you get a guy who just showed up and every single practice was great. And he hit it off with his position coach and he won the starting job day one. And that's not reality.
The way I like to put it is at some point you got to dig the trench, right? Like if you're the way to string together good days or is just always be fresh and never dig the trench. But guess what? Then you're not going to be as good at the end as you would have, right? So it's like all of our physiology books, right? Specific adaptations to imposed demands and fitness fatigue theory and all of those things, right? You've got to dig the trench, fatigue yourself, stress the body for it to adapt. If you're just always fresh and always feeling good, then you didn't work very hard. And I never stressed you because I was more concerned about you being happy and you thinking that I was great.
Right.
Well, like I was a false prophet because then we got to the end and you didn't get better.
Yeah.
Oh, but remember all those happy days where we all felt so good about
but those 8 weeks were so nice.
They were so nice. And there was there was never any conflict, and there was never any problems, but we didn't get what we wanted, right? So it's keeping the end goal in sight. Like, what is the end goal in here, right? To be my best 4 weeks out, or to be my best when it matters.
So having that level of honesty, being able to have those difficult conversations, and also do it within, and I want to set the scene, how many athletes did you guys have for this combine prep?
This last time we had just over 50.
Okay, so holy shit, right? Every single guy matters.
Right.
You're trying to show up the best version of yourself for every single person walking through. 50 people for 8 weeks.
Right.
My God.
Right.
Right? You had that conversation more than once. I'm willing to bet my house on it.
Well, Brant, like I tip my... Brant's as good as it gets.
By the way, I've never heard anyone say one bad thing about that guy.
He's as good as
ever.
it gets, man. So
not one person.
He was the captain for sure. So, like now he's moved on. So, but he has full faith in what we're doing. And, I jumped up there and put the captain's hat on and grabbed the wheel. And, we're gonna navigate those treacherous waters.
Are you pumped or what, dude?
Yeah, man, let's do it. Yeah. I mean, we're competitors, right?
Yes.
So like we already listed all the things that you have to be to do it right. And but it starts with confidence and belief. If you're nervous about it or scared, then you're not the dude. Now you got to know what you got to get better at and what you need to improve at, and constantly be refining your game as a coach, just like an athlete does. But yeah, man, I mean, you gotta. It starts with like knowing, right, that we're gonna get there. Right? I'm gonna make darn sure of that. So
it's awesome, man.
The Coach 'em Up podcast is sponsored by Squat Wedgies. Tim, what are Squat Wedgies?
Squat Wedgies are an adjustable squat wedge, 7, 13, and 20 degrees.
It's big enough to elevate your whole foot and not just your heel.
Because it's rubber, it doesn't slide on surfaces.
It's 22 pounds, so it's durable and stable enough for even your biggest athletes.
There's a 90-day risk-free trial. The shipping is free, and
get 15% off Squat Wedgies with our discount code CoachEmUp15.
Coach 'em Up 15 for 15% off of the best squat wedge on the planet. I want to circle back around to the Olympic lifting thing. So I feel like on social media every so often I'll see the controversy of whether Olympic lifting should or shouldn't be used in a program, or if loaded jumps simply replace Olympic lifts and all this.
yeah,
I would love to have just your general thoughts and opinions on that. And then I would also like you to pick, if you had to just pick one
exercise,
one Olympic lift, one Olympic lifting variant.
Okay.
That would check the most boxes for you. It's like, maybe the box is just, this one's fucking sweet and I love it.
Okay.
What would it be? But first, general thoughts and opinions around that conversation.
So in a perfect world, yes, I would Olympic lift. Like I said, there are times that we don't Olympic lift. Like during combine, we didn't because, a lot of guys weren't as proficient in it as they needed to be. And it's such a short time period that they're are safer, really. So this is not, I wouldn't even necessarily a lot of times say better ways. Now I'm biased, right?
Sure.
But maybe safer ways in the short term to accomplish some of those goals. In a perfect world, given the time, yes, I think it does fill a niche. My favorite Olympic lift, and we could have, an hour-long conversation about shoulder orthopedics and stuff like that, but I love the snatch. And the reason I love the snatch is the speed and suddenness, which to me is really just violence.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's right now, and it's everything that you have channeled into one moment, and you either did it or you didn't, and then it's over with, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a squat, you can grind it up, or a bench or whatever, but like with the snatch, even a clean, you could drop under it and muscle it up, but like with a snatch, you got this much time, and I got to take all of my aggression, all of my concentration, all of my strength, and channel it into one moment in time to execute a heavy snatch. And that's why I just love it. It's just so violent and just like right now, like, all, you know,
Dude,
all
Coach
at once.
has got me ready to fucking do some
Snatch,
snatches
dude.
right now, dude.
Snatch.
Forget this bum shoulder. I'm snatching tomorrow. I don't care.
But what I did want to say, which is kind of like a non-traditional answer, but like because people, you know, that's a trendy question, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you had one exercise, like what's
Totally.
your favorite? And people think you're gonna say, oh, we'll squat or power clean, but like that's boring to me. Like to me, if I had to pick one exercise, it would be hill sprints.
Yeah.
Hill sprints. I can only do one thing, right? Hill sprints. Now, if I can do some push-ups as well, like at the bottom, like that's cool too. But like hill sprints, because you know you can, depending on how you do it, how steep the hill, like you can train speed, you can train, you know, work capacity, you can train strength in some ways.
Yep.
Like so, if I could only do one thing, I would say hill sprints.
Dude, I don't know what something about you said. First of all, I'm a big hill sprint fan.
That's it. Yeah.
I have an online program I sell and that I sell on one of the days. There's resisted sprints involved, and I have in bold. It's like if you do not have access to any implement, you know, chains, a sled, hills, get on the hill, do it.
Hills. That's it, man. Like,
but I remember in middle school, our coaches, we didn't have a weight room, but we had this huge hill right next to the flat field where we practiced on, and they would absolutely crucify us on that hill, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, really, they would. We would have to sprint up it and then like duck walk down it as slow as possible, and then sprint backwards up it, and then lateral shuffle down, and then lateral shuffle back up. I mean, they got creative, and I got to tell you, it worked.
it worked.
Every kid got more athletic. Now, we were weak as piss, and I think anything would have helped. But I mean, I remember that hill vividly. It stuck with me.
When I was in high school, I went to high school in Oakland, and at that time, in California at that time we didn't have state championships, so the section championship was as far as you could go, but it was played at the Oakland Coliseum.
Epic.
And and the high school was in Oakland, so we had this hill that at the bottom they painted the road to the Coliseum starts here. But the cool thing was when you got to the top, and I get chills just thinking about this, when you got to the top, you could actually see the Coliseum in the distance.
God, that's
so
sweet.
like both
what a rocky moment, dude.
Both literally and figuratively, the road to the Coliseum started there.
Yes.
So we got to the section championship and won the section championship, and it rained hard that week, and they moved it away from the Coliseum, so we never got to play in the Coliseum.
Brutal.
Yeah. But the road to the Coliseum started there.
Yeah. So, dude, you know, scouring your social media in preparation for this podcast, I'm going to forget the caption now. But it's you and your shirt off, and you're with the boys, and you're jacked, dude. And it's just you and the boys flexing. And what did you say in the caption? It was like, you have to live it. That's what you said. You said you have to live it. And that jumped off to me because, look, I'm biased completely. I jump in and I still train with my guys as much as I can. Obviously, there's like a level of professionalism. I can't just be just working out with them all the time. Yeah. But every now and, you know, I usually be like, when are you going to work out with us again? I'm like, now that you mention it, today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I love training. Training plays an important role in my life for me just personally. I like you, I fell in love with the process of trying to be a better athlete just at an individual level. So what role does training play in your life today?
Yeah.
I know you talked about it, you know, kind of being the crux and like the thing that sort of ignited the fire for you to become a coach.
Yeah.
How do you live it, man?
So I do the exact same program that my athletes do.
Let's fucking go.
Now, I have two reasons, right? And one is obviously I want to feel what they feel and, you know, be able to do what they do and demo it and, you know, go through it. That's like the politically correct answer. But really also the flip side of that is I think enough programming wise, like programming for myself would just be another person that I have to program for. I already have this beautiful program that I put a lot of thought into. So while I'm experiencing it and living it, I also don't have to think about it, and I can just do it. And that's the piece about training that I value these days is like instead of evaluating my program as I'm, like I can just cut loose. Like, okay, I already thought about this. I already believe this is what this group of people needs to be doing. Now I can just get after it. I don't have to think. I can just be raw, you know what I mean? And just go get it.
So awesome.
Yeah, that's really why I do it too, is like, man, I can check my brain out and just tap into that like animal instinct and just like, I know what I'm doing and man, just attack it.
Just go for it.
Just go for it. Yeah, just go for it.
So as someone who I'm a learn by doing kind of guy. And I've always been that way. I mean, I can learn, I've acquired the skill of being able to take what other people think or say or do and digest their theory and be able to understand and acclimate. But really, I'm kind of like I have to do it, for me to really grasp it. And so early in my coaching career, my primary, and still honestly to this day, my primary mode of learning from other coaches is by doing their programming. I want to do it, And I have had the experience where I've, done a coach's programming. It's been a while since this has happened, but I've done someone's programming and I've thought to myself, there's no way this guy has done this program because this is absurd. You know what I mean? Yeah. And even early in my coaching career, I would write a program and I'd sit back and I'd look at it and be like, fuck, I'm smart. Man, I'm good. And then I do one of the workouts, after having someone else do it. I'm like, I don't know what they're going on about. And I do the workout and I'm thinking, my God, what have I been doing to these people? Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I do think that there's a ton of value in getting an opportunity. Now, the tricky part about that is like also coming to grips with the fact that I am not an elite athlete. So the way they adapt and, assimilate the training is a lot different from the way it impacts me.
Absolutely, yeah.
But there is something special about having the shared experience of having done the same thing or even having done it that same day. Or it's like, we got to do this tomorrow. It's like, I actually did it yesterday.
Well, you discover things too. They're like, oh, that's not going to work.
Right.
Like on paper, like you said, man, I'm smart. Oh, I didn't realize that I paired this with this and that's the same piece of equipment or it's the simplest thing.
Dude, can you talk about that? How important logistics, particularly in a group.
Dude, that's everything.
The flow and the way things move, that's everything. Just as important, almost as important as the exercises themselves are those considerations, from the flow of the group. How are we going to be able to funnel this through? If I set this over here, am I still able to pair X, Y, Z and get what I need to in the rest period, so on and so forth? Yeah. That is such a slept on and not talked about enough piece of programming that's so important.
Yeah. That's anytime I talk to interns or young coaches about programming, I don't start out with these fancy philosophies or scientific terminology. I'm like, what equipment do you have? Yeah. How much space do you have? Huge, right? How much time do you have? And work backwards from that. Because if you work forwards and that's the last thing you get to, you're going to be a mess, right? And it starts with time, right? You got to know how long things take, and where you need to push, where you got some time. And as a coach, it takes reps too, because when you're a young coach, you want to show everyone how smart you are, and coach the hell out of every little thing.
Talk too damn much,
and then next thing you know, you've done the world's greatest coaching job on a 30-minute dynamic warm up.
Yep.
And now, oh crap, like I've still got all this to do, and then at the end. Well, I know it says 4 sets, but only 2 sets of this. And like now you're trying to play catch up, right? So it's definitely an art.
That next group's rolling in. We got 3 rounds left.
Yeah, it's definitely an art to end. Like I try to play a game with myself and end like right on time. Like, literally right on time.
Yes.
Good, well done, but that's everything. Like it doesn't matter if you're out of your time window and don't have enough space for what you're trying to do, then it's going to be chaos, So it works backwards from that.
You know what I've noticed just as a trend in performance, which I think is a good thing. You might remember this. There was a time where a good portion of coaches wouldn't sprint their athletes because they were afraid that they would pull hamstrings and that they got it enough from the game, or that the practice took care of it kind of sentiment. And as I was coming up, I would hear coaches talk about this. And then now it feels like that's been entirely weeded out, right?
Yeah,
like
I hope so.
Sprinting almost is always the priority.
Yeah.
In your experience, did you ever see that? And certainly, have you noticed the push of speed being prioritized?
I think I think I have a number of thoughts on that. I think a lot of times it's coaches trying to find ways to rationalize what maybe they're not good at or they don't want to do, right? Maybe now I think a diversified skill set is pretty much commonplace, but back in the day, maybe a guy didn't know how to coach speed.
Sure.
So I can just say that.
We're not doing it because
I don't need. Then I don't need to. Then I don't need to coach it. For finding a reason for that. I think yes, you do sprint in the game. Yes, you do sprint in practice. But what I always used to say is like it's vaccination, right? Mm-hmm. You're vaccinating them. And inoculating them for what's to come. Because honestly, like, okay, we've never sprinted because you do it in the game or whatever. So you're telling me that the first time that I'm going to sprint is when I'm holding a ball and all these angry people are chasing after me. Yeah. And then we're going to see if my hamstrings...
With a helmet, shoulder pads, and everything else on. Yeah.
And then we're going to see if my hamstrings can tolerate that? Really? That's what we're doing here? Like, no. Like, that makes absolutely no sense. Like, you got to progress it, intelligently and build up tolerance and, like I said, inoculate somebody and get callous them to be unscientific about it to it a little bit. And obviously you want to do that in an environment that's safe, right? Our environment is safer than shoulder pads, a helmet, and someone jumping on my leg, right? Yeah. I always tell our guys, like, when I'm coaching the 40, it's like, I promise you no one's going to jump out in front of you. If they do, security will be right behind them.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Like we're safe here. So do your thing. Out on the field, there's going to be some, innate level of fight or flight, survive, do what you got to do to fit the key to the lock in that instance, right? To the environment. But in this case, we can assume that we're safe and we're going to do it perfectly, and that's where you want to start, and then layer in the chaos and the unpredictability and the lack of safety, but once you've already reinforced how to do it properly at a fundamental level.
It feels like it's the nature of our industry as a whole, which I'll just umbrella as performance, no matter what sector or setting you work in, that things ebb and flow, and change is inevitable. And me bringing up the sprinting conversation also reminded me, like, some of the things that I've seen come and go. For example, like there was a point in time where you would almost never find a machine in a weight room in a performance setting, right? Or something like a seated calf raise or a leg extension, or you know what I mean?
Right.
Whereas now it's like, even looking at pictures at Exos and Plano, I mean, there's The Kaiser
machines.
equipment
Yeah.
in there. I mean,
Yeah.
my God, so awesome, by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
But, you know, we've seen a shift, right? What are some things that you've seen ebb and flow? Is there anything that comes to your mind when I bring that up where it's like things that like you look back and you're like, God, there was a time just as a field, as an industry, we just didn't give a shit about this. And now it's like, it's back again. Or things that used to be really important that you look now and you're like, God, you know, I just don't care about that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, speed would be the big one, right? That's why there ever was a director of speed and power in the first place, because it's like, oh, there's a guy that like has that skill set. Great, let's do that. You know, now it's pretty commonplace, right?
Yes.
I think, you know, the pendulum swings a lot in terms of general to specific, right? Like we're not sport coaches, you know, just squat, bench, deadlift, let's go. You know, we're just building, you know, we're just building the individual's capacity or output, you know, and then it's, or we think we're sport coaches because everything we do in the weight room has to simulate what the guys are doing out on the field. And really it's like somewhere in the middle, as always, with everything, it's somewhere in the middle, right? Like if you lose sight of their position or their sport or what they're trying to do, then you're shorting them, right? But if you think that you're their position coach, you know, then you're also shorting them because I played D-end, but I'm not a professional D-line coach. I'm a professional performance coach. So while I'm very good at looking through that lens, I don't try to be that because I'm not that, but I'm going to fill the buckets that your D-line coach can't fill.
Yep.
And between the two of us, you know, we're going to be pretty solid. So
I'm glad you brought that up because I talked about this off air with you. And this is, you made a post and God, it was just so, it was one of the better, and it was just in a paragraph. You encapsulated something just in 8 to 12 sentences that was, you just nailed the hammer, hit the nail on the head. So sports specific and position specific training. Okay. What is it? What isn't it? And where do coaches and athletes get it wrong?
I think what it is a lens that you evaluate the individual through. And what I mean by that is, and to me, this is the biggest thing, like you look through that lens to evaluate your KPIs, your strengths and weaknesses, your needs, right? So look, if I look at you and you're a particular sport and a particular position, that's what I'm evaluating you through. Maybe for an offensive lineman, this is enough of this quality, but for a DB, it's not. Or vice versa, right? You're comparing apples to apples. So that's the first lens. Before you can even come to decisions about their strengths and weaknesses, what are they, right? What are they getting ready to do, right? Because if I'm a...
You can say that for any sport, by the way.
Any sport. Yeah.
Yes.
Like if I'm a soccer player, right? I don't need to meet NFL standards in all of these power output qualities. Now, maybe I'm Mbappe or something, and maybe I do meet those standards.
Yeah, right.
Know?
Yes.
But I don't necessarily need to, but like if I'm an NFL football player, then I should. So to me, that's the biggest thing is it's a lens to look at when evaluating needs of an athlete. And then we're going to meet those needs to get you ready for that before we even worry about transfer of training or matching or mimicking any movements. Like to be this, you need to meet these standards in these fundamental qualities under the hood of the car.
Right.
When we do that, you'll already be a better DB or O-lineman or whatever it may be just off of that.
Right.
When we get there, then we can worry about, all right, now, you're literally green light on everything. Now we can get a little cuter,
Yep.
Now we can try to do stuff that, other than just, Vergashansky's 7 layers of specificity. Now we can get a little cuter and get to the matching movements and things like that. But for me, initially, it's just a lens to decide what you need.
Dude, how do you have those conversations with athletes who already have their mind made up?
I tell them that this is even better than sport specific. It's you specific. Right? Because we could both be defensive linemen
Yep.
and move completely differently and be good at completely different things and need completely different things. So a D-line specific program may not meet both of our needs
Yeah.
because it's only giving me what I need. It's not giving you what you need. But through the D-line lens, I can see that you lack this and I lack this. And we're going to bring that up. And then we can do whatever D-lineman things we want to do, right? But it's getting under the hood and being like, okay, this engine is not an NFL D-line engine or a college D-line engine. Let's fix that first, then close the hood, then take it out and test drive it and work on the skills of the driver behind the wheel, right? But first we got to get the car right.
Yeah, us talking about this, it's bringing up stuff where it's like, and this is any athlete at any level, but those little micro conversations where like an athlete will come to me and be like, I saw this, why are we not doing that? Or why aren't we doing more of, and then like shows me a video of something that's just heinous, relative. Yeah. It's like, it's like we're shooting a basketball, but there's a band around the wrist. You know what I mean? And so it's specific to shooting the basketball for, you know what I mean?
Well, in that instance, is it though? Because that's such a fine skill.
Right.
Maybe the band around the wrist is making you shoot worse because you're having to overpower the band in a movement that isn't necessarily strength dominant. Right? If shooting a basketball was strength dominant, some of these basketball players wouldn't look the way that they look.
Yeah, right? Everyone would be Thunder Dan, which I'm dating myself by that also.
Right.
Yes.
Like, so that's a perfect example, right? That's not now jumping to a higher point to release your jump shot. That's sports position specific, right?
Yep.
So great. Now we can work on that. Hey, I can get you to a higher release point for your jump shot. Let's worry about that. That's something I can do.
Right.
Then your shooting coach can work on the finer details, right? But yeah, if I just put a band around your arm, I might mess you up. I might make you worse, So let's control what we can control. And I guarantee you, right, if you add a couple extra inches on your release point, now you got a better chance.
Yeah. All right, Scott, we're going to get into some segments, brother.
Okay.
Let's do this. Okay. This first segment is brought to you by Squat Wedgies. Use code CoachEmUp15 at checkout to save 15% on anything website-wide, and particularly their squat wedges. I love them. I use them all the time. I've got more than I even know what to do with in my gym currently. They're fantastic.
Can I say something about that?
Yes.
Quick? I love wedges as well. What I'm also a big fan of is the backwards wedge.
For RDLs and hinging?
For that or single leg movements to force them to dorsiflex a little bit more and drop the shin. So anyway, that made me think.
I love that.
The backwards wedge.
Absolutely. You got big wedge guys here, both of us. Yeah, man, I used to really try and make tall, long-limbed athletes, and I would just go through this whole arduous process to try and get them to squat better, and then, squat wedge.
Well, it's like you can work, not to hijack this.
No, please, by all means, it's good stuff.
It's like you can work on two things at once.
Yes.
Right? Like you can goblet squat them, and try to work on their patterning and mobility, and then put them on a wedge and load it.
Yep.
It's like people think it's got to be either or. Like, no,
That's a great point.
We can work on your squat pattern. I can't load that, but I know it's got to get better. So let's make it better. Okay. I also know that at some point right? You can't.
I just got this visual of you just like asking someone to like demonstrate a squat and you internally just being like, yeah, I'm not loading that.
I can't load that, but I know it needs to get better. I know it needs to get better, and I can't wait for you to get a 3 on the FMS overhead squat before I load it. So let's, and the late great Glenn Penley really like made me think about that. Like he's like load, you know, the lowest common denominator, or like in the Olympic lifts, like right, if they can power clean well, have them power clean heavy, and then train squat clean lighter and more technical. I'm like, oh, you can have both.
This rabbit hole brought to you by Squat Wedgies. So 3 things. What are 3 things that you would let's do this. Let's give 3 pieces of advice that you would give a young coach, or hell, any coach, to have a long, happy, successful career in the performance space.
First off, for any coach, but specifically a young coach, find a mentor. Like you got to see someone that's doing it right. Like there's no books are great. Instagram can be great. I'm not going to say it's always great, but it can be great. Videos are great, YouTube, but you got to see it done in real life and be able to talk to a living, breathing person that's doing it and doing it right. Like that's honestly like the biggest thing for me. I was lucky enough to have a mentor. Gary Uribe is his name. He was my boss at Sacramento State. And he coached at USC. He was actually the speed guy at USC.
Nice.
For the Reggie Bush teams and,
epic.
When SC was SC. And he was the head guy at Sac State. So, like, I saw what I considered to and still consider to be, after all these years, well done, well coached, well organized training from the get-go. So that's what was right to me. And sprinting and coaching it was right to me, even in days where that was like a difference maker because other teams weren't doing it, but we're training speed. You know, that's like our secret weapon. But like having a mentor, man, because all the reading and all of that, and like I said, watching reels and stuff, it doesn't replace like seeing it in flesh and blood done the right way, right away. So that's huge. Other pieces of advice. Shoot, I had all 3. I kind of forgot, but number 1, mentor. Obviously, being ambitious, but not being so hell bent on that you don't enjoy the ride along the way. Because being good, it's kind of cliche, like be where your feet are at, or water where the grass is planted or whatever, but like it has to be that way, because if you don't do a good job where you're at, you won't get there. Yeah. Right? You won't get there. You got to be great where you're at. Never forget where that, never forget that. Never forget your goal or where you want to be. And shoot, if that gets you out of bed, let it get you out of bed, but do a great job where you're at so that you can get there. And then lastly, network, invest, like build relationships, not in a so that I can get where I want to go type of way, but like, I mean, that'll help both of the first 2 as well. Like, there's somebody out there that's better than you at something, learn from them. And then there's somebody that's not as good at you. There's somebody that's not as good as you at something. Lift them up, and that to me, that's what I've gotten better at as I've gotten older. And I'm still not, so if you're watching this and you're like, bro, like you still like, don't.
It's like, yeah. It's like, listen, Sal, I know you.
Come on. But I realize, like, now that I'm a more seasoned coach, like that's, you're part of giving back is lifting up other coaches, and believe me, like I'm not going to list them all, but some of my former interns, former, assistants, former colleagues have gone on to much greater things, than I have. And I take pride in that. And, I take pride in the fact that to this day, they'll call me and ask my opinion on things. And, and I'm like, man, if people only knew that you were asking me, like, you're this, like, I should be asking you, right? Like,
Yeah.
But that's the true success now. It's like when you're a parent, you want better. You want better for your kids than you had or you have. That's really where it's at. Like raising and developing coaching the coaches, so to speak. And there was a day like we laughed about earlier where I didn't want to share my secrets with anybody because this is the world's greatest program. You can't have it. And
I've got the secret sauce,
and I'm going to use it to defeat all of you. And I'm still competitive, but like I'm too old for that now. I'd rather enjoy what I'm doing, and part of that, is being around good people and all of that. So those are my long-winded 3. But
I love that, man. I really appreciate that third one too. That's so much about one of the foundational pieces of why we started this podcast is getting to meet other coaches and just, dude, there's, I hope this comes through in the show, by the way, to everyone listening and watching, that we just genuinely love talking shop with other coaches, man. It's the fucking best. And they're in our space, like, our space is small. It really is. And getting to hang out with and just talk and chat with people who care about it as much as you do. Come on, man.
Likewise, man.
Let's freaking go.
Likewise.
It's awesome.
Likewise.
Okay. This segment is called Rant and Rave. This is brought to you by Train Heroic. Thank you to all of our friends at Train Heroic. I use Train Heroic. Zach uses Train Heroic. Many coaches who have been on the podcast use Train Heroic to program for their athletes, their clients. And I also use Train Heroic to train with other coaches. So shout out Train Heroic. This is Rant and Rave. Coach Sal, give us a little rant. Something that you're seeing right now currently in the performance space that you see and you're like, God, I don't love that. I'd like to see less of that.
Oh, this is a dangerous question, man. Like I really hate I secretly hate social media. And like, it's a necessary evil. You can't, it's a great learning tool at times. It's full of misinformation at times. It's fool's gold at times. And at times it's a life change. I mean, it's all the above. It's good and bad. But it's frustrating to me, and maybe I'm showing my age there. But like you'll see, obviously, as you brought up some of my posts, like you'll see me on it, and I still haven't fully mastered like its use. I get scolded or critiqued for things on it, and like
How old's your oldest daughter?
Or I did it wrong. She's turning 12 in June.
Is she your biggest scolder up to this?
She's not actually.
Not yet.
She's
no,
not yet. But so that would be my rant. Is like I say all the time, Instagram is not real life.
Yeah.
So. Before I get really heated, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, I think solid rant, though. Rave. So what are some things that you're seeing in the space that you love and you're like, man, I love that I'm seeing this and I would love to see this continue?
I really like, I know you have an upcoming conference, clinic or whatever. I know when COVID hit, everything went virtual.
Yeah.
And that's great too, because, if I'm thousands of miles away, even though we're doing this in person, we could do this virtually. Yep. To me, it loses something, because I've been on those. It's not the same.
It's not. But
you can meet people virtually and talk about things virtually. And during COVID, I was on plenty of, virtual clinics and stuff like that. But man, like you said, getting together with other coaches and talking shop, man, that's growth. Like, I just love that, and I think to me too, which is why I love what you're doing, like these national conferences, are so watered down, and I'm sorry, like, not to, hopefully nobody gets mad at me or whatever, but it's just watered down. It's like, how many 12-week winter programs do you need to see, right? And not that I have all the answers.
Sure, of course.
It's getting better.
Yeah.
But really, it's an excuse for, guys to drink with their buddies that they haven't seen in a while. And that's cool too.
Yeah.
I've been there and done that. But if you really want to learn, like some of these more intimate, like camps, clinics, like conferences, man, that's where it's at, dude, to really because then I can come up to you and say, hey, man, like, I loved what you talked about. Can I ask you some questions? Like, and just really rub heads together and talk shop, man. Like that's where you learn. That's where you learn. When I was young, a young strength coach, the coach from whatever big university got up there, and I'd feverishly scribble down like, okay, what did it say, 85% for 5 reps? Like that was gonna change the world.
You got the missing piece.
But really it's that, man. It's this. It's getting around other coaches and finding out their thoughts. Their real thoughts, uncensored, and man, that's where it's at.
Yeah, I agree. Coach Sal, this isn't brought to you or sponsored by anyone. I just genuinely want to know. If you weren't a coach, what would you be and why?
Dude, I mean, I don't even have to think.
I know what the answer is.
Before you even halfway finish the question, I would be the WWE champion, baby. Come on.
Let's go. All right, who's your favorite all-time wrestler?
I mean, The Rock is the GOAT.
Okay. Solid choice.
The Rock is the GOAT.
Hard to beat.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Ric Flair personally, and it's just based off personality. That's it.
Yeah.
Nothing in ring, pure personality.
He's the GOAT too. I've actually met Ric Flair, believe
really?
it or not. Yeah. And he came to Texas Tech. Because again, Coach Kingsbury, huge WWE fan, so in comes the Nature Boy.
Ric Flair in.
Ric Flair, yeah.
Let's freaking go, dude.
If it's not on my Instagram, it darn well should be. It's way cooler than the picture. Me and him is way cooler than 99.9% of the stuff that's on there.
Incredible, dude.
But I actually was able to have for a minute, conversation with him, which I was, as a WWE fan, like, oh my God, this is Ric Flair. And he didn't break character at all. Did not break character at all, man.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Did not break character, man.
That's
it was great.
The best.
Yeah.
God, that's awesome. Very cool. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. That
top tier answer, by the way.
That was my favorite question that you asked. No offense.
Not taking at all.
Man, that got me fired up.
Okay. Last question. Unsolicited, solicited advice. This is brought to you by Alaco. I still can't believe such a prestigious company sponsors this podcast. Thank you guys so much. We love you guys. By the way, if you go to the show notes, you can get 10% off everything. You heard that right. You get 10% off everything that Alaco has on the website, which is absolutely absurd. Click on the link. Go save yourself some money and get basically the Porsche of fitness equipment. Unsolicited, solicited advice is, I'm going to set a stage here. Okay. Here we go. You're back home. You're at the facility. Okay. You look over and you see this intern and they're walking towards you and they're doing their own thing. They're clearly headed to go help break something down or set something up, but you feel compelled, convicted, overwhelmed. You just got to give this kid a piece of advice, and it can be about anything, Sal. I mean, life, training, how shitty their posture looks, whatever. You can give this person one piece of advice. What piece of advice would that be?
My goodness, man. I guess it would be that, as important as all of this is and as much time as we spend all of this pouring into this, which I'm guilty as anybody, staying up late and programming and getting up early, which you got to do, and I love every second of it, but it's not everything in life. It's not, right? There's other stuff out there, being a parent, like have a life, basically. As hard as it is sometimes, like have a life, have stuff outside of this, because what's dangerous is if this is all you have, the adversity is going to hit so much harder. You know, I truly believe that you can still love this and still perform at an elite level and still pour everything you have into it and still realize that fact. And maybe 20 years ago, I would have disagreed. Oh, you're soft. You know, this is life. Like, that's why I'm gonna beat you. Teams meet, you know, but there's life outside of this, you know. And I think having that perspective will give you the resilience to bounce back, because like there's a higher purpose than just this, right? And there's other things going on than just this. So there's life going on. So not to be overly philosophical, but like that would be it for me.
I absolutely love and appreciate that answer. And I agree. And that is a lesson that life has continually brought to my front door. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think too, just to kind of follow up, so much, I think, culturally about our space is whether it's spoken or not, that's kind of the expectation, that you're going to give everything. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to complain about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there are, I believe, valuable lessons to be learned in that. And perhaps one of those lessons being that, like, at least for me personally, you arrive at a place where you understand that, like, this ain't it. You know what I mean? And I do agree with you. I think that there is a world where you can, you know, be a really great father and be a good friend and be, you know, and have those things be the priority as well as your ambitions in your professional career. Because that's ultimately like what it is, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Man, we nailed it, dude. Hour and a half. We crushed this thing. We talked about earlier about finishing right on time. We just about did it, boys. Incredible.
The only thing I thought what I pictured when you said this intern's walking towards you.
Yes.
I was trying to decide if I should give him a stone cold stunner or a rock bottom.
Let's go,
or maybe an RKO. He's going to ask me which finishing move I'm going to put on this poor kid.
That would have been a better question. You know what? Next time, if I can lure you back out to Austin for a round 2, it will be largely wrestling focused. How about that?
Let's do it.
That'll be how I get you down here.
Let's do it.
Coach Sal, dude, thank you so much for coming down here, hanging out with me, man. This was a blast.
I can't believe it's been 90 minutes already. Dude.
Listen, well, we've had conversations about turning these into 2 hours. So if anyone, for the people who have made it this far into the podcast, you will be the ones whose votes actually matter. So if you would like to see this podcast extended another 30 minutes, please, in the comment section of wherever you're listening to this, say, I would like to see that, or nah, 90 minutes is good. Yeah, 90 minutes is enough, dude. Thank you, man. We appreciate you coming down.
You. Seriously,
and
my pleasure.
We, hopefully we'll have you back on again. Everyone who made it this far. Wait, before I sign off, where can people find you and connect with you?
Yeah, so I mean, unfortunately, I have an Instagram handle at Real Coach Sal. And it's at Real Coach Sal, not because like I'm so famous. I have imposters, but I got hacked, and so I had to change the name. Yeah, so at Real Coach Sal. I'm on Twitter at Coach S Sal. So check me out. Yeah.
Nice, awesome. Thank you again, man. Everybody, thank you so much for listening and watching, and we'll see you next time.